Hello and welcome to Home Life, the podcast where we explore the art and heart of building a family that thrives. I'm your host, David.
And I'm Anna. Every week, we dive into the real conversations, the big questions, and the practical tips for creating a home filled with love, respect, and a whole lot of joy.
That's right. And today we're starting a brand new series we're really excited about. We're calling it The Cornerstones of a Good Family.
It's a big question, isn't it? What does it even mean to be a good family? Is it about being perfect, always happy? Of course not. We believe it's about being intentional, connected, and resilient.
Absolutely. So over the next several episodes, we're going to break it down. We'll talk about communication, conflict, values, routines, and so much more.
And we're not just talking theory here. We'll be sharing from our own experiences, the good, the bad, and the messy. And we hope you'll join the conversation.
So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfy spot, and let's get started. Okay, Anna, so here we are talking about leading a family to be a good family. Where do we even begin? It feels like a massive topic.
It does. And I think the biggest mistake people make is thinking it starts with fixing their kids or changing their partner. But the most powerful place to start is with yourself. The phrase leading our family implies leadership, and the first person you have to lead is you.
That's a profound point. We can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. So what does that self-leadership look like on a practical, daily basis?
For me, it's about emotional regulation. When the kids are screaming and the plans fall apart, my first instinct isn't always calm and collected. Self-leadership is taking a deep breath before I react. It's recognizing that my emotional state sets the temperature for the entire household.
The thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't just reflect the mood, you set it. That's powerful. For me, it's about managing my energy, not just my time. If I come home from work drained and irritable, I'm not a good leader for my family. So I've had to learn small habits, a 5-minute walk, listening to a specific song on the drive home, to transition into my home leader role.
Exactly. And this ties directly into modeling. Our kids and even our partners learn more from what we do than what we say. If I want my children to be kind, I have to model kindness, especially when it's difficult. If I want them to be honest, I have to demonstrate integrity.
Let's get specific. Can you give an example of modeling you've worked on?
Sure, apologizing. I used to find it so hard to say I'm sorry to my kids. I felt it would undermine my authority. But I realized the opposite is true. When I lose my temper and yell, and then later go to them and say, I'm sorry I raised my voice. I was frustrated, but that wasn't the right way to handle it. Will you forgive me? That teaches them humility, accountability, and repair. It's a living lesson in conflict resolution.
That's so true. It shows them that everyone makes mistakes, and what matters is how we fix them. So the foundation of a good family isn't a perfect set of rules. It's the imperfect but intentional character of the parents.
100%. It's about being the person you hope your family will become.
Welcome back to Home Life. David, last time we talked about starting with ourselves, but once we're working on that, where do we direct our energy? A ship without a destination just drifts.
I love that analogy. I think the destination, or at least the guiding stars, are our family values. This is the blueprint. It's answering the question, what is truly important to us as a family?
And this has to be a conscious decision. It can't just be assumed, oh, we're good people, we have good values. But what are they specifically? Is it honesty, adventure, learning, service, compassion? How did we go about defining ours? I remember it felt a bit awkward at first, like a corporate retreat for our family of 4.
It did. We sat down with a big piece of paper. We started by brainstorming words. We asked the kids, what makes our family feel happy and strong? Their answers were simple but profound. When we play games together, when we help each other.
Right. From that, we distilled three core values. Our first one is connection. For us, that means quality time, active listening, and putting our devices away to be truly present with each other.
The second is curiosity. We want to be a family that asks questions, explores the world, reads books, and is never afraid to say, I don't know, let's find out.
And the third is courage. Not just bravery in big things, but the courage to try new things, to fail, to stand up for what's right, and to be kind, even when it's not the popular choice.
The magic happened when we started using this language in our daily life. Instead of just saying, don't be mean to your brother, we can say, is that showing connection and courage? It reframes the conversation from a rule to a value. It gives everyone a shared vocabulary and a shared mission. The family isn't just a group of people living together, it's a team with a common identity.
So we have our blueprint, our values, but a blueprint needs to be turned into a structure. And I believe the architecture of a strong family is built with two things: routines and rituals.
Let's distinguish between those because they're different but equally important. Routines are the predictable, functional patterns that make life run smoothly. Think morning routines, bedtime routines, chore charts.
They reduce chaos and decision fatigue. A good morning routine means you're not starting every day by yelling, "Hurry up, we're late." It creates a sense of security and competence, especially for kids.
Absolutely. And then there are rituals. These are the meaningful, emotional moments that build your family culture. They are the traditions, big and small, that your children will remember forever.
Give us some examples of rituals in your family, Anna.
Well, we have Pancake Saturday. It's not fancy, but it's a non-negotiable. Everyone knows Saturday morning is for pancakes and talking about our week. We also have a high-low ritual at dinner where we each share the best and most challenging part of our day.
We do that too. It's a simple way to ensure everyone gets a chance to be heard. Rituals can also be for connection during hard times. We have a comfort blanket and hot chocolate ritual for when someone is sad or had a tough day. It's a physical, tangible way to show care.
I love that. The key with rituals is that they are infused with meaning. They're not just something you do, they're something you feel. They are the glue that holds the family together through busy schedules and life's challenges.
So, routines provide the stability, and rituals provide the soul. You need both to build a house that is not only standing, but is truly a home.
David, if values are the blueprints and routines are the architecture, then communication is the plumbing of a family.
That's a great analogy. It's not always pretty, it's often hidden, but if it gets clogged or leaks, everything gets messy and dysfunctional very quickly.
Exactly. So let's talk about healthy communication. The single most important skill, in my opinion, is active listening.
Which is harder than it sounds. Most of the time, we're not really listening. We're just waiting for our turn to talk, or we're formulating our response, or worse, our rebuttal.
Right. Active listening means giving someone your full attention, making eye contact, and then reflecting back what you heard to ensure you understood. So, what I'm hearing you say is that you felt left out when your friends didn't invite you. Is that right?
That simple act of validation is incredibly powerful. It doesn't mean you agree, it just means you understand their perspective. It makes the other person feel seen and heard, which de-escalates most conflicts immediately.
Now, let's talk about conflict itself. Conflict is not a sign of a bad family. It's inevitable in any group of people. The sign of a good family is how you handle that conflict.
We have a few rules in our house. First, attack the problem, not the person. You can't say, you're so lazy. Instead, you say, when you leave your dishes in the sink, it creates more work for me and I feel frustrated.
Second, no name calling or yelling. It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be cruel. If things get too heated, we have a pause button. Anyone can call for a 15-minute break to cool down before continuing the conversation.
And third, always seek repair. The conversation isn't over until you've found a way to reconnect. A hug, a kind word, doing something fun together afterward. This teaches that our relationship is more important than the disagreement.
This is especially crucial for parents to model with each other. Kids learn how to be in relationships by watching how mom and dad argue and make up.
It's about moving from a me versus you dynamic to an us versus the problem dynamic. We're on the same team even when we disagree. Anna, a family isn't a static building. It's more like a living, breathing garden. And every member of the family is a different plant with different needs.
I love that. The goal of a gardener isn't to make a rose into a tomato, it's to help the rose become the most beautiful, healthiest rose it can be. In a family, this means nurturing each person's unique personality, talents, and passions.
This is where we can sometimes get it wrong as parents. We might have a vision for who our child should be, a star athlete, a straight A student, and we miss who they actually are.
Leading a good family means being a careful observer. What lights up your child? Is it music? Is it building things? Is it caring for animals? Our job is to provide the soil, water, and sunlight for that innate passion to grow.
This also means allowing for mistakes and failure. You can't learn resilience if you're never allowed to struggle. If a child fails a test, it's not a catastrophe, it's a learning opportunity. Our response should be, okay, what can we learn from this? How can we do better next time? Not just punishment.
And it's about creating a safe space for big emotions. A child's tantrum isn't misbehavior. It's a communication of a need they can't articulate. Our role is to help them name those feelings. I can see you're really angry and disappointed right now, and teach them healthy ways to express them.
This applies to parents too. We need to give ourselves grace to be imperfect. We will have bad days. We will make mistakes. The goal is progress, not perfection. A good family is a forgiving family, where everyone is allowed to grow and change.
So we water with encouragement, we provide sunlight with our attention, and we pull the weeds of criticism and comparison. We tend the garden patiently, knowing that growth takes time. We've talked a lot about the internal dynamics of the family, but no family is an island. A truly good family also understands its place in the wider community and world.
This is so important. It's about moving from a focus on us to a focus on we in the broader sense. It teaches empathy, perspective, and social responsibility.
How can families do this practically?
It can start small, baking cookies for a new neighbor, volunteering together at a local food bank or park cleanup, donating old toys and clothes as a family, and talking about who they might help.
We also try to make our home an open house. We want our kids' friends to feel welcome here. We want to know our neighbors. It creates a well of support and connection that makes everyone stronger.
And it's about modeling kindness in everyday interactions, holding the door for someone, saying thank you to the cashier, letting another driver merge into traffic. These small acts, done consistently, show our children how to move through the world with courtesy and compassion.
Ultimately, a family that looks outward is a family that is less self-centered, more grateful, and more resilient. They understand that they are part of something bigger.
So, to bring it all together, leading a good family is a continuous, intentional practice. It starts with leading yourself, is guided by clear values, structured by routines and rituals, maintained by healthy communication, nurtured by allowing individuality, and expanded by connecting with the world.
It's the most important work we'll ever do. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being purposeful, and pouring love into the people who matter most.
Well said, Anna. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, David. And thank you for listening to Home Life.
Join us next time on Home Life. For show notes, resources, and to join our community, visit our channel.
And if this conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend. Let's all build stronger homes together.